You know something is wrong when a mother sits in front of a screen, watching the man responsible for her son's safety refuse to say the one thing she's been waiting to hear. That moment didn't just shake the room. It exposed a level of leadership failure that no talking point could hide. And when Representative Vindman looked across that table and asked the question that hung in the air like a silent warning, you could feel the entire hearing shift. This wasn't politics. This wasn't performance. This was a real-time test of judgment, honesty, and basic competence from the person holding one of the most powerful positions in the country. Vindman didn't walk into that room to make headlines.
Half months now. For the sake of the American people and our service members, I hope you've done your homework since. Let's talk Indo-PACOM. What year has the Navy publicly set as the benchmark for being ready to fight a war with China?
Well, it needs to be right now. We know what China has said.
I'm glad to hear that, but there is a publicly
right
set date.
Well, we know it wouldn't be
Let me help you
prudent
out.
for me in this environment to
2027.
reveal when we think we're ready. That's what China has said, and we understand what they're
Secretary,
saying,
I
and
asked
we want to
for
be
a year.
capable and ready for it.
Not a filibuster. 2027 is the year. According to unclassified DoD assessments, how many warships does China have in its Navy today?
Many and growing.
370. It's the largest Navy in the world. How many does the U.S. Navy have today?
Thanks to this budget, it's increasing
It's a number. I'm looking for a
substantially,
number.
but it's just south of 300.
296, pretty close. How many ships is China expected to field by 2030?
I believe that's a classified number, but it's going to
There's
go
a DoD
up at a rapid rate.
CMPR report that was released. There's an unclassified number.
It's going up at a rapid rate.
Let me help you out. 435. Let's see if we do better in EUCOM. What corridor in eastern Poland is vulnerable and a priority for U.S. reinforcements? It connects Belarus to a Russian region.
I'm sure you can tell me.
I can tell you. It's the Suwalki Gap. Which heavily militarized Russian territory connected the Suwalki Gap? It contains nuclear-capable missiles. It threatens all of NATO. It's right there in the middle of Eastern Europe.
I see we're playing a quiz game here.
It's
Ultimately,
Kaliningrad
thankfully,
Oblast.
we're getting
Let me-
our NATO allies to step up in their spending to make sure that they can hold the
Mr.
line.
Secretary, I asked you a specific question. Thank you. It's Kaliningrad Oblast. So what percentage of Ukrainian frontline casualties, let's talk drones, are now caused by FPV drones?
A very large percentage, and we're studying that conflict closely to understand
I hope so.
that fact.
It's over 70%. And which U.S. service has written doctrine or standardized procurement for integration of FPV drones?
That's the Army.
I wish that were the case, but actually the answer is none of them. So we're not prepared yet, and we need to get there fast. Let me turn to a different topic. A few weeks ago, when my office opened up in Fredericksburg, I spoke to the mother of one F-18 pilot who flew the March 15th mission over the Red Sea in Yemen that you discussed over Signal. I spoke to her again on Tuesday and asked her if there was anything she wanted me to bring up. She believes that you need to resign. She also had several questions, but one thing, she said she would appreciate an apology for putting classified information. Her son couldn't even tell her where the Truman was going, but into the Houthi PC small group Signal chat that risked her son's life and the mission. Mr. Secretary, yes or no, do you think you owe her an apology?
Please make sure to let her know how grateful we are for the skill and heroism of her
I am very much grateful. I'm sure everybody in this room is grateful. I'm proud of what her son has done. The question is, do you owe her an apology for your actions? Are you going to be accountable?
It was an incredibly successful mission. Her son did great
They
work.
did a magnificent
and
job.
Thankfully, the Houthi campaign was successful.
Secretary, I agree with you. Magnificent job. The performance of those pilots and Navy personnel, magnificent. We're talking about what you did and accountability. Are you going to apologize to the mother or not?
I don't apologize for success.
You don't apologize for putting her son's life in danger and for putting the mission in jeopardy. Well, that's really disappointing and not befitting the type of leadership that our troops and families deserve. It's frankly a stunning lack of OPSEC. Privates are trained to do much better than that. It was reckless. And it sounds like that accountability doesn't extend as far as the Secretary of Defense. So I think you should resign. The mother says she wants you gone. And with that, I yield back.
He came with a mission to find out whether the man controlling the military was actually prepared to lead it. He didn't start with dramatic accusations or long speeches. He began by doing something so simple, so basic that it caught viewers off guard. He asked the questions every Secretary of Defense should know instinctively, facts that shape America's readiness in the most dangerous era in decades. And the moment the first question landed, it became clear this wasn't going to be a normal exchange. The first test was straightforward. When will the Navy be ready for a potential major conflict? A readiness benchmark discussed openly for years. Instead of a clear answer, what came back was vague, wandering language, as if saying the date out loud was classified when it wasn't. Vindman didn't flinch. He told him the answer. 2027. A simple fact. An unclassified number. A benchmark every senior defense leader has referenced. Watching the secretary hesitate on something that fundamental made the room feel smaller, tighter, like everyone was suddenly aware of a gap they weren't supposed to see. But Vindman wasn't done. He kept going, each question sharper and more revealing than the last. How many ships does China currently maintain in its navy? No answer. Another pause. Another attempt to dodge. Vindman supplied the number. 370. The largest maritime force on the planet. How many does the U.S. have? Again hesitation. Again Vindman had to fill in the blank. 296. And when he pushed forward to the projected number China is expected to reach by 2030, the answer wasn't detail, it was deflection. Vindman filled that in too. 435. Numbers that drive strategy. Numbers that change budgets. Numbers the secretary should not need help to recall. The pattern was unmistakable. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a disagreement. This was a leader in one of the most critical jobs in the world struggling to answer fundamentals. And with every missed answer, Vindman's expression didn't show anger. It showed something closer to concern. Because these weren't trick questions. They were the kind of details every modern conflict hinges on. Timing, capability, terrain, technology. They're the first things any defense chief is expected to master. So Vindman pushed further into the world's most dangerous fault lines. The Suwalki Gap, one of NATO's most vulnerable corridors. A place where geography could determine the fate of an entire region. Instead of naming it, the secretary danced around the question. Vindman didn't raise his voice. He didn't mock. He simply gave the answer clean and direct. And in that moment, the gap in knowledge became impossible to ignore. If the man responsible for defending the U.S. and supporting its allies doesn't know the map, the risks, or the pressure points, then who does? And then came the part that made even lawmakers stop shifting in their chairs. Vindman brought up the battlefield reality that has transformed modern warfare. First-person view drones. In Ukraine, these drones have changed everything: tactics, survival rates, the pace of the fighting. Vindman asked for the percentage of frontline casualties now caused by these drones. Another stumble. Another vague reply. Vindman gave the answer: over 70%. A number that should alarm anyone charged with preparing U.S. forces for future conflict. But the real shock wasn't the number. It was what came next. Vindman asked which branch of the U.S. military has established a standardized doctrine for integrating these drones into practice. The answer, in theory, should have been simple. Instead, the secretary guessed. He said the Army. Vindman corrected him. The real answer: none of them. No branch has formally adopted a full doctrine. No standardized procurement system. No unified integration plan. And that admission, spoken out loud, showed why so many analysts have raised concerns about preparation falling behind reality. Up to that point, the hearing had been tense, revealing, almost academic. But then Vindman shifted to something heavier. Something human. The kind of topic no leader wants to face unprepared. He brought up the mother. Vindman described how he met her at his office opening in Fredericksburg. She wasn't looking for attention. She wasn't pushing an agenda. She was the parent of a military pilot who risked his life on a mission that the secretary had discussed in an unclassified signal chat. A conversation that, according to what's been said, contained sensitive details that even her own son couldn't tell her. And when Vindman asked her if she wanted anything brought up in the hearing, she had only one request: ask him to apologize. Just a simple apology from the man who, in her view, risked her son's life through reckless communication. Vindman relayed her message. The room fell quiet. You could feel people waiting to see what Hegseth would say. This was the moment that separated real leadership from practice talking points. An apology would not undo anything. It wouldn't erase the incident, but it would mean something to her. It would acknowledge responsibility. It would show that the person leading the Department of Defense understood the weight of his decisions. So Vindman asked, "Do you think you owe her an apology?" Instead of a clear yes or no, the secretary pivoted. He praised the son. He complimented the mission. He talked about success. But he avoided the question entirely. Vindman tried again. And again. Each time the secretary refused, not in a confrontational way, but in a way that made the refusal even more unsettling. Because what the mother wanted was not a medal, not attention, not a policy change. She wanted acknowledgement that her son's life should have been handled with more care. Vindman pointed out the double standard that stung every listener. Privates and junior personnel are punished swiftly for mishandling sensitive information. Officers face discipline. Careers are impacted. But when the Secretary of Defense, the person who sets the standards, does it, somehow accountability becomes optional. And the mother watching from home was left with the painful conclusion that the leader responsible for her child's safety didn't think he owed her anything. Vindman didn't escalate emotionally. He didn't grandstand. He simply laid out the case. A pattern of unpreparedness, evasion on direct questions, a refusal to acknowledge errors, actions that risked real lives, and a mother who felt betrayed. So when he said, "I think you should resign," it wasn't a viral moment for the sake of drama. It was the logical endpoint of everything the hearing exposed. The deeper meaning of this exchange goes far beyond a single confrontation. It speaks to something happening across the national security world. The growing gap between the threats rising around us and the readiness of the people in charge of managing them. China's naval growth. Russia's tactics evolving through drone warfare. The vulnerabilities in Eastern Europe. The rapid rise of tech-driven combat. Defense analysts have warned for years that the U.S. military must adapt faster, learn faster, prepare faster. But adaptation requires leadership that knows the facts, understands the stakes, and communicates with precision. Leadership is not a title. It's the decisions you make when pressure hits. And sometimes the clearest test of leadership comes down to the simplest question. When someone under your command is hurt, scared, or put at risk, do you take responsibility? Or do you pivot to something safer? Vindman's confrontation wasn't just about data points or foreign threats. It was about seeing whether the person in charge respects the human cost behind every mission line and every order typed into a phone. And in that hearing before cameras, lawmakers, families, and service members, Hegseth showed exactly what he was willing and not willing to do. That's why the moment struck so deep. That's why viewers replayed it. Because this wasn't a slip of the tongue or a bad briefing. It was a window into the mindset guiding the entire Department of Defense. If you're someone who watches these hearings not for the drama, but to understand what's really happening beneath the surface, the strategy, the pressure points, the failures, the meaning behind each exchange, then you already know why this moment matters. Leadership at the top isn't ceremonial. It's a lifeline for the men and women who serve. When it breaks, trust breaks with it. And if you want more breakdowns that don't just replay the footage but uncover the deeper story behind moments like this, if you want analysis that connects the emotions, the facts, and the consequences, make sure you like this video, share it, and subscribe for more. Your support helps bring clarity to the conversations that matter most.